Hello, 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 my dear people. How are you? Which is interesting because that's what the title of our last podcast was. And I'm here to tell you, I have heard that several times today that I won't say I'm traumatized, but I got a call from my brother and he said, "How are you?" And I said, "I'm good." And then he said, "How are you?" And I was perplexed because I thought, well, I just answered that. But he said, well, you said you wanted to know how we were, and I want to know how you are. So I thought, okay, well, I'm fine. Then I got a call from a friend, and she said, how are you? And I said, I'm good. And so it's been interesting because it's almost like I'm afraid to say, how are you? But I do want to know. So thank you. Thank you for responding to how are you? And I certainly hope you're doing well. Of course, this is Resilient Lives coming to you today. Just checking in. This was a full day. I'm excited to say because we had 79 degrees. Messed me up because I was out there sitting on the deck enjoying the sun. Now, I'm always cold, so it was interesting that I was burning up. And there was a bee, a wasp out there, and I thought, what's up with this? So again, we're looking at how nature, the budding trees and the wasp and the birds and the chirping and the wind chimes don't seem to mesh with the fact that we're in the middle of a serious situation. But the good news is we're doing okay because we're together. So I hope that you had a good day. It's Tuesday. And as I try to figure out the rhythm of my life, I said, well, what am I going to do? How am I going to live intentionally today? But I decided to do what I tell you is to press the pause button and to seize the moment, because in Chicago, we don't know whether we'll have another day like we had yesterday, today, because it could be snowing tomorrow. But now we're just seizing this moment. And of course, I have my tea. This is Ginger Twist. It's a great after dinner tea. It works well with all that I had to eat. So tonight, hopefully, we will have just a brief discussion. We actually have already discussed this topic, so I'm going to say this is part 2, because we have looked at, are you fully charged, from our personal perspective. And so tonight our topic is, are you fully charged? And when we looked at it from our personal perspective, we were, looking at the purpose of being charged. And I think, of course, the first thing I thought of is the first thing we do is with these gadgets, they must be charged. So we charge our phone, we charge our laptop, and our iPad. We charge our devices because heaven forbid something should happen and our devices are not ready, or heaven forbid our phones die in the middle of an important call, or So we spend a lot of time making sure that everything around us, our batteries in our cars are charged and all those things. But, how much time do we spend making sure that we're charged? So we looked at, from our perspective, what charges us, So we could have looked at the internal things, like whatever it is that makes us go is what we were looking at from our inner selves. But today I want to explore it from a different perspective. So I want you to consider this. This topic on are you fully charged comes from a book from an author that I first met in graduate school when I did the Strength Finder. He wrote the book, The Strength Finder, and so in this book, you had to see what your strengths are. I wasn't happy with my strengths because I wanted some real solid strength. I didn't want any wimpy strength. But it's interesting because he has written some interesting books, and so I said, well, let me just look at this. Now, according to him, and he works for the Gallup company, the things that charge you are meaning, interaction, and energy. And so I'm imagining that because it's causing me to ponder that a little deeper, to explore it. I know when I get together with a friend, I sometimes I always feel like, well, maybe I shouldn't meet with her today because I got nothing. And so why am I going? I don't want to be a pain, but I'll go because she's expecting me. And during the conversation, I almost feel like we're passing this energy ball back and forth. She'll say something and I'll say something. And in the beginning, I thought I had nothing. But as we continued to interact, actually I gained energy from that. Now, his three things are meaning, interaction, and energy. And I said, well, now let's look at that, because I know sometimes when we're in a situation, and like now, we do meaning making. We try to make sense out of what's going on. Why is this happening? This makes no sense. And that's probably the kind of meaning that I had been accustomed to. But he's talking about meaning, doing something purposeful that benefits another person. Bookmark that benefits another person. He's not talking about doing something particularly that benefits me. It seems like what he's saying is if I do something for another person, then that's going to benefit me and that's going to charge me, which is an interesting thought, because it seems like the world that we know it is focused on me. It's focused on greed. It's focused on what am I going to get out of this, And then the second one was interaction. And, and that one he's talking about, that's creating far more positive than negative moments. And so that's also an interesting point, because we know in positive psychology that creating positive really helps us, our brain, not to go quacky and all, but just to create positive moments. So, you'll explore these thoughts and maybe give me some feedback as to how you're feeling. And then when he looks at energy, he's talking about making choices that improve your mental and physical health. Now, these, he claims, according to research, that these are the three pillars that it's going to help us to get fully charged. So, I thought about it. He said a lot of people are pursuing happiness, but we should pursue meaning, doing meaning in things. And it just makes me wonder, because we're all at different stages. And when I mean different stages, I'm looking at the adult development theory, which speaks to each decade of our lives. We're going through a different stage. There's a different developmental task, and so it changes. So you in the middle adulthood, your task is probably working on your careers and your work life, and then another decade would be working on something else. But with each of those life tests, there is a kind of a crisis that goes with that. Like in infants, their polarities are trust and mistrust. So, I'm saying this because everyone is not at the stage where they're thinking about helping somebody. Some are just wanting to get their education or improve their lives, but this is for me. So he's saying if we want to be fully charged, we have to look at helping others, which is an interesting thought, because years ago I read a book about centenarians. These are the people who live to be 100. And the way these people, 100 years old people, if they got sick, they went out to help others. Rather than looking at themselves, they went outside of themselves to get better, to help someone else. The focus wasn't on themselves. And in this study I did with lupus patients, it seems as though those people who had been so ill, as they reflected on it, they wouldn't exchange the experience for anything. Because they felt that this trauma had made them a better person, but what it did was make them want to give back. Interesting. So it makes me wonder, does life or crises, or does it mature us so that we want to help people? We don't want them to go through what we went through if they can. So I hope I'm making a little bit of sense, but this is a lot to consider, and we won't be able to do it all tonight. But I just wanted to have you consider if these things of helping people, making meaningful things, interacting with people, getting energy from doing positive things, if that's the case, then are you operating at a deficit? If you were doing these things, would you be more productive at work? Would you feel better? Or do you feel that it's not having an impact on you? So let me hear what your thoughts are. Just wanted to send something out there to you today so that you would have a little something from me to think about. So we can come back to these three keys, and maybe you can tell me how these 3 points would work for you. I mean, a lot of people say, if I can help somebody, that was my Uncle John's saying, if I can help somebody, then my living won't be in vain. But everybody doesn't feel that way. And how do you feel after you help somebody? I have at the college, I have mentored students, and that was a rewarding experience. And then when I went to visit a senior citizen, she said, well, I would like to do that. I got a lot of satisfaction out of going into the nursing homes and visiting people, because they don't seem to get a lot of visitors. It seems like once they they're put in the nursing homes, that they're forgotten. And I had this little lady said to me, she got joy out of seeing me come through the door. I didn't know that because she never spoke to me. But it was good. I mean, it did energize me, because when I got there, I was probably coming from wherever I was, from a busy day, but I felt it was important. And after I left, I felt better, because this little lady said to me, would you mind having a Coca-Cola with me? And I thought, what? To myself. But her sister had died, and she was in a nursing home because she had no one to live with. So if we're looking for ways to charge ourselves, perhaps if we look outside of ourselves, if we can mentor someone, especially college students or other people who are looking, it's something that you will be fully charged from doing this. There's usually no pay. I mean, these are volunteer kinds of things, but we're looking to make meaning out of living. And everyone doesn't get to that stage. Some people never get to that stage. But in, I guess, from 34 to 60 or so, that's a stage where, if we're looking at the crises that you would have, either you're looking at the opposites. Either you're going to be looking at becoming stagnant, or dealing with something as generativity, to generate things and to help people and to give back. So your choice is, do you want to be stagnant and do nothing, or do you want to get some vigor and give back? I know this is probably more than we have dealt with. It's a different perspective, but I'm enjoying looking at it, because I don't know that I would have looked at charging myself that way. I probably would have thought I would do that through nature. But this is just sending a little love. I'm hoping that you're going to get charged from this. But I'm also hoping that you're doing well, that you're thriving as this sheltering in is going. I'm told that there are some difficult days ahead, but we've got each other. We're staying connected. I'm sending a little love out to you, and we're going to make it through this. It might take some grit, but we're going to stay well and flourish. So good night, and beaming a little love.